Cast is now starting.
Okay.
All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. Molly from MPL here. I have Kristin Wald, who is the Vice President of the Board of SOFIA, here today to talk about how to help a loved one in an abusive relationship. Before we get started, I'm going to just go over some quick housekeeping tips on how to use GoToWebinar, the platform that we're in. So there's we have here screenshots of how you'll see the platform on various devices. So if you're on a computer, you're going to have a control panel on the right side, and you're going to look for this question box. Anytime you want to ask a question, you can ask questions throughout. We'll address everything at the end. Everything will be anonymous, but you can ask questions as you think of them. So just feel free to type your question and then submit. If you're on a cell phone or a tablet, it's a little bit different. Just look for the question mark. If you tap that icon, then you'll be able to type in a question and submit similarly. So let me turn it over to Kristin so we can see her screen.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hi. There we go. My name is Kristin Wald, and I'm the Vice President of the Board for Start Out Fresh Intervention Advocates, which we call SOFIA in Montclair. And I am also a certified domestic violence response team member, and I volunteer as a presenter for SOFIA, as well as do some of the back-end nitty-gritty gopher work in the background. And I want to thank Molly, thank the Montclair Public Library, and everyone for coming. And I'm here today to share about how to recognize when someone may be in an unhealthy or abusive relationship, as well as some things that we can all do to help our loved ones, even during this time of social and physical distancing.
Thank you so much for being here with us, Kristin. Can you tell us what people should think about or look for as warning signs for an unhealthy relationship?
Yes, we have, there we go. We have some warning signs that we usually discuss, and these are general. So some of the warning signs at first to keep in mind is that most abuse does not start out as physical or emotional violence. In fact, sometimes the buildup towards an unhealthy relationship can feel very romantic or loving, because no one goes into a relationship looking for abuse. No one goes into a relationship looking to be in an unhealthy relationship. So one thing that we do tell people is that when you first meet a couple, you may find that you really like both of them, you really like the person who may turn out to be abusive in some way. Because abuse, which of course can be physical, which is what we typically imagine, that's what the movies and television shows and a lot of advertising campaigns tend to focus on. But it can also be emotional, which is in most cases, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, financial, which includes checking accounts, debit cards, passwords, electronic or digital, which can include sharing photographs, sharing information you don't want out there public, and also stalking, which is a serious warning sign. And that can cross from both emotional to verbal to digital to physical all at once. And if someone feels like they're being stalked by a partner, that's a really serious situation, and we often don't think of it in that way. So that would be something to definitely keep in mind as well. On the first slide, I think we can see it. I'm not sure.
Can see it.
Are we seeing the first slide?
The warning signs slide?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's visible. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things, because of this, these days with digital situations, that if someone is checking your cell phone or your email without permission, that's a warning sign. If someone is constantly putting your friend down or your loved one down in public, especially, exhibiting extreme jealousy, exhibiting insecurity, an explosive temper, if someone tries to isolate your loved one away from his or her friends or family, making false accusations, which could be combined with jealousy or insecurity, mood swings, physically hurting your loved one in any way whatsoever, being very possessive, telling your loved one what to do, pressuring or forcing someone to have sex or any sexual activity, and accessing or controlling a bank account. Also, something often people don't think about is doing anything that can negatively affect your job situation. We were discussing this prior to the webinar starting, but things like showing up unannounced at someone's job, hanging out all day if you work in a restaurant, or making phone calls constantly, checking emails for work, that sort of thing. All those things are warning signs that we tell people to watch out for.
And Kristin, do all of these need to appear in a relationship for it to be abuse?
No. Some of the things on this list are actually quite simple on their own. Like many of us have mood swings. Many of us have tempers that people often find, you might start shouting or something. And while that can be disturbing, it may not be abusive. Some of us are bossy and we tell our partners what to do or how to do it. But when these things are combined, that's when there may start to become a problem. If you have the possessiveness combined with being insistent on isolating you from family or friends, suddenly it becomes a very lonely situation where only one person can see you. And the one place that there's no wiggle room is the physical hurt. If someone is physically hurting you in any way, particularly strangulation, particularly blocking you into a room, not allowing you access to leave, those kinds of things, there's not a lot of wiggle room. And something we don't actually have on the list, although it does go under physically hurting you, would be physical abuse that includes removing prescribed medications. That includes birth control, any kind of medication for chemical imbalance or blood pressure, depression. Sometimes we have situations where someone may require that the one partner must come to the abusive partner to get his or her medication. And that obviously is a physical situation between those people. And often these warning signs will appear together. So as I mentioned, isolating you from friends or family, which are your support system, can appear with the possessiveness or extreme jealousy. And unfortunately, jealousy can sometimes feel very romantic to some people, and even to friends or family. If someone, always wants you, I want you to look at me, I love you so much, no one else can love you. And that can feel very romantic to some people who are seeing it from the outside. So when these things are combined, we want to really pay attention. Or if the hair on the back of your neck goes up, and you kind of feel strange when you see people together, just be alert and aware to those sorts of things. Of course, it feels good to be wanted, even at the beginning of relationships, sometimes obsessively, but it can grow into something that is very negative and very it takes over your life and it takes over your emotions. So if there's something that interferes with other relationships, interferes with your job, interferes with your hobbies, your schooling, interferes with your emotional or physical well-being, you want to take note of that and mention it to your friend or family member. Many times friends describe having a feeling that something is off. They might feel uncomfortable with how their loved one is interacting with their partner. And again, this is real life. It's not in a textbook. So we can't necessarily, say this is definitely yes or definitely no. So you have to go with your gut. The answers are not easy in that case.
Are there any particular warning signs during this stay-at-home time right now?
We've had some situations that we've heard about where people have had enforced isolation. This time obviously is very stressful regarding jobs, regarding your routines, schooling for children, the relationships with your family, your health. just schedules being upended. And all of those can exacerbate an abusive situation. We've heard stories about victims being made to wash their hands obsessively to the point of cracking and bleeding in their hands. Also being accused of trying to infect their partner with COVID-19, attempting to infect them purposely, being kept indoors, being threatened with being put outdoors, being threatened with expulsion from the home if the victim coughs or shows other signs of illness. And conversely, an abuser may force victims to put themselves in unhealthy situations, like forcing them to go out into public spaces that may be dangerous, withholding masks or sanitizer, withholding wipes, and excuse me, and the spike that we've had in gun purchases in the last 2 months makes the home more dangerous for everyone, but not just victims of abuse, but the implicit and explicit threat of having a firearm in the home is acute in domestic violence cases. In addition, there are fewer options for removing oneself from home when there is a stay-at-home order, and so there's less privacy to reach out to friends and family for help. And we know that there have been fewer calls to both national and local hotlines because of that lack of privacy. We know that there have not been fewer cases of domestic violence. In fact, it's gone up. So intimate partner violence has gone up, but the calls have gone down because there's been less chance for people to reach out and get help. And of course, all of these issues are similar, by the way, for both child abuse and sexual abuse in general. So we're on the lookout for many of those things to overlap as well.
So if someone is worried about a friend, what can they do?
And I'm hoping that people can see the slide. We will post all of them on supportsofia.org, and also our Facebook page. We'll put them on, which is Start Out Fresh Intervention Advocates. But some of the suggestions that we have for helping a friend or family member in an abusive relationship are to absolutely approach your loved one with your concerns. Number one is just to listen, to be supportive, and be respectful of their own decisions. You want to focus on your friend or family member and not on the abusive partner. Of course, reaching out and keeping that communication steady and keeping that communication positive between you is also very important. We do suggest that you avoid being negative about your friend or family member's partner. Focus on actions that concern you, not on judging the partner. Your friends may still be in love with their abuser, and they may feel dependent on their abuser or loyal to their abuser. So that would be something, just make sure to focus on actions, make sure to focus on concern for your friend and not on your feelings about their partner. We always tell people to emphasize that abuse is not normal, it's not their fault, that everyone deserves a healthy relationship, no matter what he or she has done in past relationships or has not done in past relationships. Everyone deserves to have a healthy relationship today, now. And we also suggest that friends who are concerned about people they love, that they go out and they find resources prior to opening up the subject with their friend. So connect your friend to resources. At SOFIA, we love the website loveisrespect.org. We use a lot of their resources, especially when talking to teens and talking to young people. The national website is thehotline.org, and they both have wonderful resources for just about everything, for what happens at work, what happens at home, what about if there's children, what about if there's no children, for LGBTQ issues, for older issues, different religions. All of those things are addressed in those websites. They're really, really wonderful. Couple of don'ts is please do not contact your friend's abuser. Please do not publicly post or say negative things about them online. First of all, it's really about you feeling better in most cases for, to help your friend, but it usually only worsens the situation for your loved one. So, trying not to exacerbate the situation from the outside and really focusing on your friend is what we usually try to emphasize. And even when you feel like there's nothing you can do, don't forget that just by being supportive, by being caring, by withholding judgment, you're doing so much. And try to always keep those channels of communication open so that if and when your friend is ready to ask for help and is ready to reach out to you, that they feel like you will be a supportive and accepting friend who doesn't judge them for the mistakes they feel they've made or for the choices they're making as well. I'm gonna try to go down more. This, and again, we're going to post all of these on the SOFIA Facebook page. A couple of things from the National Network to End Domestic Violence. I really like this because it boils everything down to very simple bullet points. Ask them how they prefer to connect. Do they want a phone call? Do they want to text? Would you like, at this time, since we can't meet at a restaurant, but could I come and stand on the sidewalk and talk to you on your stoop? How do you want to connect, and let them be in control. To stay in touch and be creative, to try to find different ways to connect with your friend as opposed to just texting, maybe playing Words with Friends, or something else that just lets them feel like they have a connection to you. Always be supportive, help them think through how to stay safe with safety planning, which also is on those websites that I mentioned, and finding those resources for them as well. So it's just one more visual for everyone to think about. When you care about someone that you believe is experiencing abuse, broaching that subject can be very stressful. And maybe you've noticed warning signs, maybe it's just a feeling you've had over time, and your instinct may be to save them, which we want to do for the ones we love. But it's really not that simple, because abuse is about power and it's about control. So taking away the control that your friend may have is, taking away any kind of autonomy that they feel that they have as well. So we have a couple more resources that you can have for your friends and family members. Besides those two websites, we have the New Jersey Statewide Domestic Violence Hotline that also has a videophone for those who are hard of hearing or deaf. And we already mentioned the hotline.org. There's a chat option, as well as just going to the website. And all domestic violence organizations right now are continuing to provide services. They're up and running. They have not shut down. Some of the programming may be limited or offered remotely. There may be support groups that are remote. There may be, consultations with a lawyer, that sort of thing, that are remote, but they're all still functioning. And shelters are still accepting clients when possible and sanitizing, doing the physical distancing. We've donated masks to several different places. So they're doing all those things. They're up and running. Please don't hesitate to reach out or ask questions thinking that everything is shut down, because it's definitely not. So let's see. A couple of other easy ways to remember how to contact people. The Rachel Coalition is a wonderful organization right in Essex County. The Safe House is the Safe House for domestic violence victims, and that's their number right there. You can contact them. The Family Justice Center has wonderful resources. And of course, SOFIA also, we refer people, and we also provide lots of opportunities for workshops and making sure that people can be connected to law situations, as well as providing cleaning supplies right now and doing a lot of other things. So all those things are up and running. All those places are very willing and able to help you at this time. Let's see. Some legal resources that we have throughout New York, New Jersey, Essex County. We have all of these areas that are up and running. The domestic violence hotline. We have the different places where you can get legal help and legal advice, therapeutic help, therapeutic advice. All of those things are available. So these are the kinds of things that you can get familiar with as you're planning on discussing your concerns with a friend or family member. And the more information you have at your fingertips, the easier it is to have that conversation. And at the top of this graphic right here, it does say that if you are in fear that your friend or your family member has their life in danger, you should call 911. There's no dilly-dallying about that. So if you feel like there's an immediate danger, you don't need to go ahead and, you know, look up resources. You can just call 911 if you're fearful for their life in that moment. Were there any questions that people have right now, or?
We don't have any questions yet, but I would invite everyone watching, if you have a question, please feel free to submit it. Just look for the question box on the control panel if you're on a computer, or look for the little question mark if you're on a cell phone or a tablet. As I mentioned earlier, your question will be kept anonymously. We won't read any names or anything, so we'll just wait a little bit for any questions to roll in.
Okay, well, in the meantime.
Okay. We have one already.
Okay.
So this one is there a code when you go to a pharmacist, like code 19, if there's domestic violence?
You know, there have been, I think, different pharmacies and different locations have started to share codes. However, unfortunately, thanks to social media and also because of social media, there hasn't been a 100% this is the one to use.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard a couple of people, you know, make a call to a pharmacy to refill a prescription and put in something innocuous or something that just doesn't fit in. Mm-hmm. Like if you're calling and leaving a message for the pharmacist and you say, and I'd also like a pepperoni pizza with that, you know, something like that, when you've asked for your refill of birth control pills, and you know, so it doesn't fit in, and they would know to, oh, that didn't sound right. And pharmacists, dentists, although we can't see them right now, but most people in personal services are very attuned to something that feels off or wrong, and they have training and they know how to ask the right questions and address those things. You know, in the same way that a doctor doesn't leave a message with a medical diagnosis on an answering machine, they ask to speak to the actual person. So that would be something, you know, I'm going to try to find out if there's something that has been used lately, but unfortunately I don't want to say one thing because there have been so many floating around that, you know, a particular emergency code, I would hesitate to give out, oh, this is the one we're using. But if you put something in that's very incongruent, strange, odd compared to what you should be saying, then, you know, we hear that sometimes with 911 calls, that people will call 911 and they'll say, you know, is my dry cleaning ready to pick up, you know, or something like that. And, you know, the message is, I can't say what's really going on.
Right.
So I don't know if that answered the question completely, but I will try to find out a code, and that's something I can also put up on the SOFIA Facebook page as well.
Oh, that sounds good. We have another question. Are there statistics about how many domestic violence cases have occurred from March and April up till now?
You know, unfortunately, we don't. I mean, first of all, that's very soon to have dependable statistics. We do know that the calls to hotlines have dropped by about 30 to 40% nationwide, and also in our local areas. I know that the Family Justice Center, that they've received very few comparatively, like compared, you know, May to last year, April to last year, fewer requests for help. And, you know, everything is slowed down now, but we can also guess that because of that lack of privacy, and because people aren't able to look for resources and find resources right now, that could also be influencing it. Most people are saying, and there were a couple articles over the weekend that emphasize this, that we do believe that incidents themselves have gone up, but that calls for help have gone down. So it's nerve-wracking. And as I mentioned earlier, that that also tends to overlap with both child abuse and sexual abuse, that the numbers would be similar for those right now too.
So how would you advise someone who is maybe afraid to approach their friend? Maybe they're afraid their friend's going to get angry with them. Do you have any guidance on that?
Yeah, you know, a few times in workshops, especially with teenagers and young people, there have been times that someone said, you know, I tried to talk to my friend and she told me to get out of her face, or she told me to leave me alone, and she hated me and never talked to her again. And that's not unusual. So the one thing I would say, and this is true overall, I suppose, as well, but if your friend reacts very angrily, very strongly, even using violent language, you need to protect yourself, first of all. You know, you can back away, but try not to burn the bridge. Being defensive, being angry, you know, feeling like you need to be loyal to the person that is your abuser, it's not unusual. People sometimes are in love with their abusers. They depend on them, especially if children are involved, or especially if there's a household that's shared, where they're dependent financially, which is part of abuse sometimes. Just don't burn the bridge. You know, try to still be the person that they can reach out to and not feel like you're going to think they made a horrible choice or horrible decision. So, you know, responding angrily is not unusual. Try not to take it personally, and, you know, keep reaching out. You know, it's one of the pieces of advice that I've given people is that make a schedule in your calendar that every 2 weeks you're going to text your friend and say, hey, what's up? Do you want to get together? Do you want to, you know, have a FaceTime or whatever? And, you know, just to reach out. And if they don't answer you, they don't answer you. If they tell you to lose their number, wait another 2 weeks. Don't push it too far. But please try not to take it personally, because it's a very common response and reaction if someone is not ready to sever that relationship. And it needs to be their own choice.
Right.
So it's a good question.
Thank you. Okay, there's another one that came in. Sorry, it's a longer one. I just need to expand the window. This one says, is this open to men and women? Can an older child, like a teen, use this kind of information?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, any of the information that we've shared here today is open to everyone. As I mentioned, the websites are very inclusive of the elderly, of children, you know, of men, of women, of people who identify as neither, of, you know, everyone, all religions and everything. So it happens everywhere. And one thing, you know, I didn't open with it today, I usually do. We all know people who are in abusive relationships. We just may not know it. We all know people. And that includes people that we like and don't like. It includes people we are similar to. It includes people very different from us. And men can be abused. Women can be abused. If you're dating someone, if you're married, if you've just celebrated your 48th anniversary, it's all, unfortunately, it's open to everyone. So all the information is absolutely usable. You know, and you need to just do what you are comfortable with and what you feel like fits in with how you can be most helpful to your friend, or how you can be most helpful to yourself. So there's no timeline. There's no, you know, nothing set in stone. As I mentioned earlier, this is not a textbook. This is real life. So you just have to do what gets you through the day.
We have another question. How about local food pantries? When the batterer is in the car, or if the victim goes in to get the food, are the people there trained to notice or know if a person is in danger of domestic violence?
I think that's probably very touch and go, depending on where you are. I know lately, a lot of the emergency food drop-offs that they're having in different places, you're in your car, the person, you know, opens up the door and puts the food in. Many times people don't even leave their car. for the major food drop-offs. You know, local food pantries who see clients repeatedly probably would notice changes or notice discomfort. I would say that based on my personal experience with different people, that chances are the person who is the victim would not be the one to go into the food pantry to pick up food unless there is like a pride issue for someone.
Okay.
Because having autonomy and having independence is usually not hand in hand with being in an abusive relationship, not being given that. So that would be something to also keep in mind. But anywhere that serves communities that need assistance, whether it's food assistance or monetary assistance or health assistance, is going to hopefully have themselves attuned to either changes or trouble that somebody might be in. So that's a great question though, because especially right now, there are a lot of new people who are showing up at food pantries, and that financial stress can exacerbate what is an abusive situation. So that's important. I'm going to make a note to contact some of the food pantries. Thank you for that.
So we don't have any new questions yet. I'll just give folks a moment if you're typing something out or thinking of something. Please feel free. We still have some time. Kristin, is there anything else you wanted to mention while we're waiting for possible questions? Or
I just, I think that the main thing that I always try to get across is that there's a certain image of what an abused partner looks like in the media and in society, and no one ever wants to associate that image with themselves. So, some of the examples that I gave of recognizing an abusive relationship, as we go through those examples, when it's in person, I can see on people's faces many times that they're recognizing, oh, wait a second, my boyfriend from when I was in my 20s treated me that way, or I had a girlfriend who did all those emotional things to me. And so that's the kind of thing that sometimes people have never labeled that quote unquote bad relationship as abuse. And, it's important that people can recognize that what they did was not necessarily their fault, that their relationship was bad because it was bad, not because they contributed to that in any way necessarily. So, and I just also want to add that many times we may be friends or a family member of someone that we think is not the victim in an abusive relationship, but is the abuser. And almost all of these things that we're talking about, the websites, loveisrespect.org especially, they have wonderful sections on how to talk to your friend or family member that you think may be abusing someone. So, that's just as important. And in fact, that can be more important in many ways because you can stop the abuse at its core, or help someone to stop the abuse. So, don't be afraid of approaching a friend or family member for that reason either. Of course, keeping in mind your own safety as well. So
that's a great point. We had another question come in. Is there a healthy level of jealousy to feel in a relationship, or is all jealousy bad?
Oh, I think that's very personal, right, for everyone. But I mean, I think jealousy is a natural feeling, and I'm not a therapist, so I can't, answer that for everybody. What we look for is when the jealousy is extreme, when it overlaps with possessiveness, for instance. It's completely natural that if you love someone and you see someone else checking out the person you love, to feel insecure about that, or to feel like, I don't want to lose this person. And that's where a lot of jealousy comes from, right? But what we are worried about is when that jealousy overlaps with restricting the movement or restricting the rights of the person that you quote unquote love. So, does your jealousy, whoever asked the question, but does the jealousy mean that you never let that person go out to parties anymore, or that you want to start controlling what he or she wears? That is taking away their own autonomy. And if you're feeling that way, then you might want to check, well, why am I feeling that way? Is it my insecurity? Is it my feeling? Or is it something else? So, but that's also a great question. And again, I'm just going to repeat myself. This is real life. It's not a textbook. We can't help sometimes how we feel. So it's great to be really aware of emotions like that.
All right. Well, I'll give another moment for more questions. We did get 2 thank yous for presenting on this topic. So I appreciate the positive feedback. I do recall an earlier conversation we were talking about safety planning.
Mm-hmm.
And is that something, are there resources on that available as well?
Yes, again, I hate to keep going back to the websites, but they have wonderful resources on safety planning. A couple of the main things, what a safety plan basically is getting someone who feels abused in a relationship to think about next steps. So if I'm thinking about leaving an abusive relationship, what do I need to do to make that happen? So if I take medication every day, maybe I need to put a week's worth of medication in a travel bag. If I, need cash, maybe I need to start taking, $10 or $15 a week and putting it in my travel bag. Where am I going to keep that? What's a safe place to do? Where am I going to go? When I leave my house, where am I going to go? Because the worst feeling is to leave and then think, what do I do now? So to get that information, to think about where you're going to go, who will you call, what are you going to take with you, what do you absolutely need? And that can be as simple as comfort items. So, do you have a favorite photograph of your family? Do you have a favorite, even book or a journal? And, those medications, maybe like a snack, a bottle of water, those kinds of things that make leaving literally picking it up and going. But a safety plan can be as simple as just knowing who to call. In the last 2 months, I've had several people come to me and say, my cousin told me about being abused in her relationship. My friend told me that she is scared of her partner, that sort of thing. And then what do you do? And one of the things that you can do in that situation is offer direct help, but also just to offer, here are some ideas of what you can do, because fear and stress shut our brains down. So being that person that has the calm answers and the suggestions to give the person options, which doesn't mean telling them what to do, right? You don't want to take away their autonomy, but give the person options. Do you want to go to your mom's house or do you want to go to your cousin's house? Where are you going to go? And then we're going to call the safe house, or then we're going to call your doctor or whatever. So all those things are part of safety planning. But both of those websites have really wonderful resources for all different situations, because adding children in the mix is another huge situation.
Right.
So, talk about, make sure you don't forget the stuffed animal and
Yeah.
the formula, or the second outfit, or the diapers, So it does take thought, and it's overwhelming, which is one of the reasons sometimes people choose, not to leave at a time. So
Right.
That's another great question. Yeah.
Thank you. We have another comment. Someone said, I left an abusive situation after my laundry was finished, and I found it's a good opportunity to leave an abuser because you have your clothes and you're in another location. In that case, it was their apartment building.
Yep. That's the kind of thinking, right? That,
yeah.
You think, well, I'm going to have all my clothing with me, so what better time to, I don't have to think about what I'm going to wear for the next couple of months or whatever. So yeah, that's a great suggestion too. It depends on how comfortable you feel. I'm sorry, my dog is here.
Oh, hi. Special appearance.
Yeah.
All right, I guess we'll wrap up. Certainly, if you have questions, you can always go to supportsophia.org for additional resources from you. at SOFIA, and we'll have the slides up there, and I'll also be putting this recording on YouTube, so you can view the commentary and the questions after the fact. So thank you again, Kristin, for joining us today. I really appreciate your expertise and your knowledge and everything that you shared with us.
Thank you for hosting this topic. It's not a topic that we see addressed often, so it's really important right now, especially. Thank you so much for doing that.
Sure. I'm just gonna quick share my screen again. Bear with me. I'm sorry. There's so many buttons on here. And we're gonna close the webinar in a moment. Hold on. Sorry. Okay, so everyone can see that. So thank you again, everyone, for coming today. Definitely check out the resources, check out supportsophia.org, and you can go to montclairlibrary.org to see more about more programs and things that we're doing coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and end this webinar in just a moment, if I can find the button to do so.
We're all learning.
You know? Okay. All right. Thanks again, Kristin.
Bye. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.